Hi, this is Joe again with another movie review, and to continue the theme of the Star Trek movies, I'm going to be discussing the latest one, which is Star Trek 3: Search for Spock. And yes, this is the actual movie program that they showed in the videos where Star Trek was playing, and here's the back cover. And of course, I also have the program guides for the other first two films. I know this one has seen better days. This is the program guide for the first Star Trek film, and this is the one for the second one. This is a little better shape, but I still have these to this day. But I'm going to be discussing the third one, The Search for Spock. Of course, this picks up right after the events of Star Trek 2, which is, in a way, this is why I like, of the whole Star Trek movie series, that's why I like Star Trek 2, 3, and 4, because they followed each other. Not just because they are the titles 2, 3, and 4, Star Trek 2, 3, and 4, but because they pick up right where the last one left off. 3 picked up where 2 left off, and Star Trek 4 picked up where Star Trek 3 left off. And that's why I like these. So you have to watch all 3 films to really get anything. And the thing that's a shame is that nobody referenced what happened in the first film. Only what happened in these 3 particular films you see reference to in episode Star Trek 5 and then Star Trek 6. But I'm getting ahead of myself. For Star Trek 3, like I said, picks up right where Star Trek 2 left off, when the crew in mourn for Mr. Spock, because he like I said, he died in the end of the second one, and so Kirk is still upset over it. So is the rest of the crew, and explains that most of the crew they had in the second movie, most of them had transferred to other ships or other assignments. And particularly David's, Captain Kirk's son, David Marcus, transferred to a science vessel along with Lieutenant Savick, who is now being played by Robin Curtis, because, like I said, in Star Trek 2 was played by Christy Alley in her very first professional acting job. But naturally they wanted to bring her back for Star Trek 3. But her salary demands went up, and they couldn't negotiate, what her contract was going to be, because naturally, of course, her money was going to go up. Instead of her money going up, the money that she was going to be paid went down. For some reason, I don't know why, but that's, the story that came out. So she pulled out. And of course, not only that, but she eventually got stored on Cheers. And then eventually she got stored on the North and South TV miniseries in Book 1 and Book 2, which I previously did a review of. So now you have Robert Curtis taking over the role of Lieutenant Savick. And both of them are on the science vessel Grissom, the USS Grissom, who are going to investigate the Genesis plan. Of course, which is something that I left out in my Star Trek 2 review, was that when Khan, even with Kirk, he activated the Genesis device, and of course it went off in a nebula, and it created a planet, which was being dubbed the Genesis planet. And so they were going to check it out for science purposes. And of course, during all this, the Klingons and get involved. And the Klingon commander was played by Christopher Lloyd, from Taxi, or from the Taxi television show, which had recently been canceled by the time they did filming for Star Trek 3. And of course, somehow they end up getting from a mercenary, the Genesis report and the not really the device, but the tapes, or the security tapes from Starfleet. They ended up smuggling it out, which is exactly the same tape that you saw in the briefing scene in Star Trek 2. But instead of saying Carol Marcus introducing it, it was Captain Kirk who introduced it. So I guess for the same reason for Christianity, the actress who played Dr. Carol Marcus in Star Trek 2 was not in it. So you had that going on as well. And of course the Klingons or Christopher Lloyd's character, to play Commander Crew, he wants the Genesis device for the Klingons to dominate, the Federation. Because they feel that the Federation could do this, they could set up bases closer to Klingon territory, or possibly even in Klingon territory, and take them over. If they do this, then they would be able to take over and destroy the Federation. So you have that going on there. Well, back to the main story. Just before the Enterprise was able to go lock into space dock on Earth, somebody broke into Spock's quarters. And so of course Kirk says, okay, I go down and check it out. And as security is waiting for him, he goes inside and he hears Spock's voice. It turns out to be not Spock, but Dr. McCoy. Because also at the end of Star Trek 2, which I didn't mention, was just before Spock dies, he went into the chamber in the engineering room because it was filling up with radiation. He used a mind meld on McCoy and transferred his spirit into McCoy's body. I know I'm getting slightly ahead of myself with that. So he found McCoy and he says, "Oh, check him out." And he figured that he was going nuts, or maybe he was just upset that Spock died as everyone else was. So they got into space dock, and the commander of Starfleet says to the Enterprise crew, "No one's going to go back to Genesis, except for the science team, and you're not allowed to discuss it because it's going to be a huge controversy because of the moral implications of the Genesis device. No one's allowed to even discuss it anymore." So they figure out that McCoy is under exhaustion and he's exhausted, but it wasn't the case. And then of course later on, Spock's father, Sarek, played by Mark Lennon, he played the same part in the television show in one episode of Dream the Babel. So fans of Star Trek fans knew Spock's father because it was established in one episode of the original series. And he said, "Oh, why can't you have to bring Spock's body back to Vulcan and not let him on Genesis?" And he says, "Well, because they saw no future, thought that he did, and that's it. When Vulcan dies, he thought that was it." And he said, "No, they have the spirit is still alive. As long as the spirit is still alive, Spock will be alive." So what they decided to do, they figured out, because first Sarek thought it was Kirk. He gave his spirit over to Kirk. When that wasn't the case, he gave it to McCoy, and they found out what happened with the security tapes. So now he has to take back the Enterprise and go to Genesis and get Spock and go to Vulcan. Well, the Starfleet didn't give him permission to do it. And come on, doesn't he, Scotty and maybe two other guys, and that's it. I don't need like a small skeleton crew. We don't need a full crew. We use a skeleton crew and do it. And Starfleet still said no. So he said, "Okay, I'm going to do it anyway." So they went to the planet. They hijacked the Enterprise to go to Genesis. Remember, the Klingons got there first. They destroy Grissom, the USS Grissom, and everybody on there, and then they got into a fight with the Enterprise. But then, of course, with all the damage they had with the previous movie, with the Battle of Wakanda, the Enterprise is in lousy shape. And of course, the shields wouldn't work, weren't being activated, it was like deactivating. And then they had the Klingons firing a shot and practically knocked down the whole ship. So of course they tried to bluff the way out of it, and they couldn't bluff the way out of it. And of course the Klingons captured Kirk's son, Lieutenant Saavik, because they beamed down to the planet because they found a life form there. And the life form happened to be the reactivated body, kind of almost like a zombie thing almost. The Genesis device reactivated Spock's body until there was a baby that was growing up in stages, or in surges, like the planet was aging in surges. And so you had a young boy, or Spock as a boy, he had the Tansavik, and he had David on the planet, captured with the Klingons. So Christopher Lloyd says, okay, if you don't give me the information I want to kill each one of the prisoners until you give me the information. And it says, wait a minute, let me try to talk to you. And it says, go and kill one of the prisoners, I don't care which one. And originally the Klingons was going to kill Saavik. But then Kirk's son David stops her, but he ends up getting killed. That's when you had the lines by Kirk, "You Klingon bastard, you killed my son." You had that line. This kind of replaces him screaming "Khan" in the second one. But then you had that going on. Then the crew decided to surrender, but Kirk had one more trick up his sleeve. He set the ship to destroy itself, and which of course is even sadder than with Spock dying in the second one. Even sadder than Kirk's son being killed was the destruction of the Enterprise, because that's one of the most iconic science fiction spaceships there was. There's really maybe three. You had the Enterprise, you had Battlestar Galactica, and the original television series. Plus you had the Millennium Falcon, maybe its most iconic science fiction vehicles of all time. Maybe the Space 1999 maybe as well. It's the most iconic science fiction vehicles. And that of course blows up with practically the whole crew on there. So you just have maybe two guys from the planet, 2 or 3 Klingons on the planet, plus he had 2 in the ship. So you had about 5 Klingons left. So they go on the planet and Spock killed one of them, and the other 2 were killed by, I think he had 2 on the planet. One of them was killed by Spock, and the other one was killed by Kirk. Because they beamed down, because the Enterprise crew beamed down to the planet as a ruse. And they formed Christopher Lloyd's character were alive and well on the planet's surface. So if you want the Genesis device, you have to come down here and get it. So that's what Christopher Lloyd does. He beams down to the planet, leaves one guy up there on the Klingon strip. He says, okay. All over, and it beams everybody up except for Kirk and Spock. He said, when you beam up Spock, you're the Vulcan too, and we talk. And I said, nah, because I'm not going to do it because you wanted to do it. So alright. So of course, guess what happens? They get into a fight. And this is about the only time that I can remember in the Star Trek movies where Kirk gets into an actual fist fight. Because it didn't happen in the second one. Didn't happen in the first movie or in any other films. You could probably say the seventh Star Trek movie when they mixed with the Next Generation crew. But as much as I don't like the seventh one, this one had a fight in it. But this was the first real film where you actually had a fight, because it actually became a joke in the television series where that's what every episode has to end with Kirk getting into a fight with a bare knuckle fist fight with someone. That's when it happened. So, but the interesting thing was no background music during that fight scene. None. So of course, guess what happens? Kirk wins the fight. And going back on, Kirk calls up the ship, the Klingon ship, and gets beamed up. And the Klingon that was there was the only one that was left. The whole Klingon crew, there was only one guy left. He says, "Okay, help us or die." He says, "I do not deserve to live." I said, "Fine, I'll kill you later." That's real, humor scene. That's all this went through. He still comes up with a joke at the end of it. So they use the Klingon ship to go to Vulcan. And that's when they decide to do this thing when they transfer Spock's spirit out of McCoy into Spock's body. And Sarah X, the High Priestess, was played by Dame Judith Anderson. And this was her last role because she died like a year or 2 years later. Of course, she was famous for being in the movie The Ten Commandments. So Spock's father says, "So I want you to do this for my son." I said, "Why? This hasn't been done in ages." He said, "Well, because for my son. My logic is unsound, but my son is concerned." I said, "Okay, fine, we do this." And they warned Coy if the danger to Spock is just as bad for him. And he says, "Okay, I do it." And Kirk gives him a funny look. It says, "It's a hell of a time to ask." And of course they do it. And that takes a couple minutes to do. That sequence. And of course Spock ended to be okay, except he lost his he had to take time for his memory to come back. And because at first he doesn't remember everybody. Remember, he has images in his mind that he remembers it, but he doesn't have the memory left. And it says to Kirk, remember what's the last thing he said? He said, "You saved the ship? You saved the ship. You saved us all. Don't you remember?" And he thinks for a minute, and he says, "Jim. Your name is Jim, right?" Kirk says, "Yeah, that's right." And that's how the movie pretty much ends, with the rest of the crew coming in a circle. They're all excited that Spock is alright, and that's how Star Trek 3 ends. And of course, you have the thing they had in the end, and the adventure continues. And of course, in reference to the end of the first movie, just before the closing credits, he says, "And the human adventure is just beginning." And at the end of the third one, he said, "And the adventure continues." When I saw that in the movie, everybody groaned, so you know there's going to be a fourth Star Trek film coming down the line, which is the movie I'm going to do next. So thank you for watching a review of Star Trek 3. Please like the video, comment on it. Please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.